associated with eScan for the past 13 years. Just to give you an insight about what Microworld is, though most of you may be aware, we are the leading developers of content security and antivirus solutions. We are an 18-year-old company operating in more than 110 countries worldwide. We are a total channel-driven company. Our main focus as of today is on developing innovative solutions with innovative technologies being incorporated for the end user as well as the corporates and help ease out lives. Moving on about the challenges that you and I are facing today in our times. I'm concentrating here in the first half about web filtering and internet security. So what is it all about? Just to give you an agenda of what I'm going to cover up. Can we afford to be an ostrich in today's times? Thinking that since we assume that we are secure in our own shell, nobody can attack us in today's times? A small little perspective that we need to think about. So these are the points, overview of security threats that you and I are facing today, the business demands, parameters and the problems, what is the solution in store, the different layers of security, and security best practices. Just a brief of how the IT or the information security field has evolved over the years. Initially, malware first used to be distributed and the antivirus developers or the vendors used to get a solution for it as and when we got a sample. But gone are the days, the good old days if I may say so. Then we moved on and things started getting into malwares being hosted on websites or URL filtering that had to be done. Likewise, we came up with solutions for that as well. And in today's times, we talk about web reputation, which websites are good or bad based on certain parameters or certain conditions or certain scenarios. And real code analysis is being done in today's times. So things have actually evolved. Can anyone tell me what are the threats that are being prevalent today, in today's times, in other words? Yes, please. What are the problems that you and I are facing in today's times? Maybe being a home user, sitting on the laptop, or being a corporate enterprise space user. So, okay, what are the latest things that are happening in the information security field? Yes, please. Very good. And? Phishing. Very good. And? Have you heard about the anonymous group? Yeah? I'll share with you a little bit more about this specific group. They are a group of people or individuals with like-minded intentions. They don't basically get into systems to spoil or sabotage or retrieve information like the way the hackers or the bad hackers or bad people with bad intentions do. What these people do is they basically reveal information. They disclose vulnerabilities that are a part of within a system or in a process, and they inform that this needs to be corrected. It's a whole bunch of individuals actually spread across continents, not one or two countries as such, but across continents. And that is the reason we have gained a lot of footage from media, from people who are in the information security space all over the world. The reason I ask you and I shared this episode with you is, keeping in mind the way they function, we in the security field have to be 2 steps or 10 steps ahead of what our guys do. What I mean by guys is guys who write malwares. Because the way they think, we've got to think 10 times ahead of them of what they could probably be doing in the next phase or in the time to come shortly. Anji, sorry? Thanks to Asang. So what has gone wrong since the past 1 year or so, 12 months to 18 months? I've just got down certain details for you. Along with the source of the breach that has happened, it's very, very important to know of what happens at what given point of time. And this analysis don't alarm us now. In the days to come, I think we'll all be lost somewhere. Just to give you an instance, you know the employee working within an organization discloses information unknowingly or knowingly. That creates a lot of problems in today's times, especially the social networking sites like Facebook, Twitter, etc. We need to control such activity on certain individuals, which we know that are creating problems for an organization. The other being hacking, needless to say, and many other things that one would think of in today's times, because each setup is unique, each organization's requirements, business demands are unique. Likewise, we need to move ahead based on those requirements. So due to breach, what all problems and what all has impacted that kind of business activity for organizations? Fraud being at 24%, loss of shareholder value, which is very crucial in today's times in a very competitive world that you and I are living in. Brand reputation or goodwill is compromised because of breaches. Intellectual property theft, IP theft as we say it, and financial losses, needless to say. So where all do these threats exist? I have noted quite a few points. You could come up with yours as well. Web browsing being a major issue today, spam, phishing problems, outsider threats, that is hacking, cracking problems, inside threats which I mentioned, social networking sites, details or personally identifiable information is being disclosed. Application attacks are more persistent now, unlike before. There is no single logical place for a perimeter to be defined in today's times. You agree or disagree with the statement of mine? Yeah? Good. Threats of disclosing confidential information, as I mentioned earlier. So what are the typical communicational points that you and I use today to keep ourselves abreast or in touch or networked? Desktops, laptops, local users within a network, email servers, web or application servers, file servers as well. And how do we compute? The grid on the right hand side gives you those details. Mobiles, laptops, PDAs, home computers, as well as through other vendors that we have, what as partners. So how do we carry these threats in today's times? It is very, very important to note this down as well. USB drives, can you control the usage in today's times? Maybe if you have a networking guy around, he will say yes, through a DC or an AD, it is possible. But at what level, to what depth? That is another question that we need to answer. CD-ROMs, Wi-Fi devices, do we have a control? Bluetooth, portable storage mediums or devices, handheld devices like iPods, smartphones, inventory scanners, point of sales or POS, many other things one would think of. The other part, one being the hardware, what about the software part then? Problems within the operating systems, office automation softwares, web browsers that you and I use on a day-to-day front, web to applications, email clients, chat and IRC softwares, instant messaging softwares, FTP clients. So the problems that you and I are facing, how do they creep in, how do they get into our systems in today's times? Different people working in different organizations, based on our profiles or our designations, access is given, controlled or protected depending on the situation and the individual. So even after all this, still data gets infected or malware gets into a system. So what are the routes through which all these malwares, all of these infections come in? Just a small little perspective. Through softwares, that is through video audio players, torrent softwares, uTorrent or a BitTorrent, for example, office automation tools, P2P softwares. Through this, what all do we get? Worms, viruses, hacking is also possible, botnets, which is very, very important in today's times. Phishing happens, even spam happens through all these modes. Sorry? Botnet is basically very simple. You were sitting with an iPad sometime back, or an individual later on with a laptop. Later, that's it. Basically, using your systems, okay, I can drop in a software on your system, excuse me, and use your system to penetrate into other systems, retrieve information about what you are doing, and hack other systems or organizations. Simple fact, how was the Iranian nuclear plant? Fill in the blank. If you look at it from my perspective, it is a state-run affair. But nobody is acknowledging that, or nobody wants to acknowledge that. It is specifically designed to shut down the Iranian nuclear power plant. So it cannot be you and I running the show. It has to be a multiple effort from multiple individuals, and that has to be funded, and that funding cannot come from people like you and me or vendors like you and me. It has to be from a multi-state run affair. The other damage route that happens is through the browser. Internet Explorer, Firefox, Netscape. Through this, you can get these scripting attacks, which automatically a script runs on your system, infects your system, in other words, retrieves all the necessary information and passes on to the malware user or to whomever it has been designed and developed for. Then you've got phishing attacks, as well as through the script, and hacking attack also can be done. Then the other route is through the instant messengers that you and I use. Examples, MSN, Yahoo, Skype. Through that also spam is possible, botnets are possible. They creep into your system, and that is never visible to the naked eye. Last but not the least is even through the hardware. Wi-Fi connections, which we are talking about, which we discussed upon, using its benefits, but what disadvantages nobody knows, or nobody likes to disclose. Okay. Portable storage media, USB devices, drive-by downloads that happen, as well as rootkits. So all these things or malwares or infection coming in through these different routes. Just to give you an example once again, an employee copying data, information or crucial to the company. If in an organization I just come in and I plug in data, I retrieve certain information and I move out. How will you control it in today's times? Can you? I am an outsider, I come to your organization, I retrieve information and I move out. How will you get that information? Not possible, right? Sorry? Not easily. Lots of efforts need to be put in. Right from the guy who's there in the security to the guy who's giving him a computer to work on. So this kind of control needs to be done. Senior executives falling prey to phishing traps or scams like the Nigerian or the Russian bride scams. All of us love to have those emails coming in. Okay, and some of the people actually have fallen prey to that. That's the most surprising part. Company systems became a part of spotnets, what I told you earlier. due to worm attacks. Uncontrollable JavaScripts that run on legitimate popular websites, which you and I are never aware of actually, but that happened. Employees uploading information to social networking sites like Facebook, Twitter, etc. And yeah, the fad, if I may use that word, cloud vulnerability. Data backed up on the cloud is getting misused. Do you or I know where does our data reside? It's a good thing that's happening in the IT field. Sorry? Yeah, but at the end of the day, if you're going to be a part of that service, a part of that medium, or a part of that functionality, you need to know as to what's happening, right? Wouldn't you be interested in knowing where your file is being stored? So what are the business demands today? I'm driving you to that point. Unified networks for email, texting, web browsing, file sharing, games, voice, audio, video, telepresence, web services, so-called cloud. Users want to enjoy mobility in terms of any service from any device throughout the world. They should be connected, easily available. Seamless mobility across devices and networks. Strong but easy user authentication and verification. A very crucial role that has to be played by this statement. And needless to say, reliability and security of networks. So these are the demands. What are the parameters affecting those demands? Increased access to sensitive and confidential information, mission critical network, mobile and remote devices, wide variety of storage devices that you and I use, and interoperability. Problems being faced. Loss of critical and important information, loss of productivity due to all this, lost time and opportunities, brand reputation, goodwill lost, bandwidth crunch is another big problem, malware and liability. Nobody looks from an Indian perspective, especially from the liability point of view, right? But it's very crucial. So typical changing threat landscape. So what is it? As I mentioned earlier, gone are the days when malware used to be written and we as vendors used to get a sample and then get a cure for it. Gone are the days, good old days. Just to give you an insight of what it is and how it is, just to take you through so that we get to know where we are heading to and how it needs to be tackled. Initially there were viruses, worms, trojans. In today's times, there are backdoors, spywares, adwares, keyloggers, rootkits, rogue software, programs that you and I use unknowingly or knowingly. So how do you differentiate between the past programs or the good old days programs as compared to today? Threats were noisy and visible to everyone. In today's times, they're very silent. They get into your system without informing you. And unnoticed with variants, because there are a number of variants that are written or developed to get into your system to circumvent the softwares, the scanners. The good old days, threats were indiscriminate, hit everyone. But in today's times, they are highly targeted, regionalized. Example which I gave you earlier about the Iranian nuclear power plant. Examples, Swiss, Stuxnet. Deadly programs written till date. The earlier ones were disruptive, impact was actually visible. In today's times, they steal data and damage brand names, goodwill, etc. Impact is still unclear. Remediation action was actually technical. In today's times, it is more complex because the way a program is written, example is a rootkit. It has got functionalities of a virus, worm, trojan, spywares, multiple programs basically. And top of it, it runs at the kernel level, and it also has got a camouflage functionality. That means it changes its characteristics the moment the scanner is run. So it becomes all the more difficult to actually analyze and scan what is coming in and what is moving out, and what it is doing actually it's sitting inside. So those complexities are also important in today's times. Sorry. Entry through the perimeter and the gateway, entry through uneducated network clients and endpoints. Just a graph that will give you an insight of how it has been in the 80s to where we are today in 2010. Started off with password guessing, a simple functionality that you and I probably do day in and day out. Okay, self-replicating code, exploiting known vulnerabilities. Moving on in 2000, we got spam coming in, denial of services happening, phishing attacks happening, identity theft happening, cyber espionage that is happening even today. And in 2010, the most one was social networking attacks. Facebook, Twitter's problems. What is all that? That is all a threat that you and I face today, wherein our data is being disclosed or our information is being disclosed. So what's the need of the hour? You need a good real-time antivirus scanning, a content scanner within, web scanning functionality incorporated within, real-time anti-spam and anti-phishing, device control and application control, real-time alerts as to what's happening within your network, within your perimeter, as well as the logical divide. A firewall within that helps you to prevent any unauthorized user from getting into your system. Flexible policy control based on the users that you have or employees that you have within an organization that work based on their profiles. In short, customizable, centrally manageable, and low utilization of the system resources, which is very crucial. A 5-point security ring, just to summarize of what it is of the previous slide, or the need. An internal resources based on each organizational requirements, internal gateway, a perimeter, extended perimeter to move out, and the personal perimeter. So what is it? I have summarized in these 5 points actually. You need to control what comes in and moves out, or what should come in and move out. You should protect what data needs to be disclosed, whether it is for internal users or an external user. Enforce policies in place based on one's requirements. Understand the ongoing demands and the requirements of an organization, the business demands, the user demands. Understand it on an ongoing process and educate the users. It's a vicious circle, needless to say. It all goes hand in hand, because if one of them is cut out, it wouldn't make a difference at all. So what's the solution in store? You need a solution through which you can control and protect access to different IT assets, anti-spam and anti-phishing as I mentioned, enhanced firewall with a network traffic monitoring as to know what's coming in and moving out, strong device control, file and folder security, strong protection against the below phenomenon, viruses, worms, trojans, spywares, adwares, keyloggers, crimeware, ransomware, rootkits, including the rectification of the registry and the I9. Very crucial in today's time, because even if I remove a malware, a virus so-called, okay, but the remnants are still there, it may crop up once again, because there are a number of variants that are being written in order to circumvent those scanners. So what sort of layers would be important? Antivirus, anti-spyware, adware, web protection, a control on what each user should be able to access in terms of websites, at what time and what not. You can define those with a time restriction. Anti-spam, anti-phishing, a firewall in place, intrusion detection prevention, that's IPS, IDS in short, application and device control, network access control or network access protection. Just to take you one point further, we, being the developers of eScan, we have gone 3 steps ahead than our competition. What I mean by that is, you mentioned earlier about the device control, phishing, spam problems. Taking that example further of plugging in a USB and retrieving data, what we have done within our software is, we can block all the USB ports. We can even authenticate the user and the USB device. So unauthorized access of storage devices is not allowed in short. You can even have a read-only mode, so no data can be copied onto the USB. You can even record the files that are being copied onto the USB. And all these alerts are generated on a real time, apart from doing virus scanning, as well as delivering the autoplay and the auto execution. And this is where we score. This is where we are superior. Because we ensure that the integrity and availability of data plays a very crucial role in today's times for business continuity. Just to give you a brief of once again, we've got very good technologies that drive our solutions. We've got MWL, Microworld Windsock Layer, non-intrusive learning patterns technology, or NILP in short as it is known, DIRC, that's domain IP reputation check. Just to give you an insight of one of the technologies that we are catering to and what we've designed and developed, which is the Microworld Windsock Layer. Are you guys aware of what the Windsock Layer does basically within an operating system? Yes, please? Yes. What does it do within an operating system? I'm sorry? Correct. So Microsoft has designed this socket wherein data passes through it for applications to be used. Right? Keeping the same functionality in mind, we have designed and developed our own Windsock Layer. But in addition to what Microsoft is doing, we are scanning the data that comes in by intercepting it. Sorry? Even in your Windows 7 there is one. Yeah. So I'm particularly talking about Microsoft Windows. Yeah? What we've done is, we've developed our own Windsock Layer. As a result, we are docked over and above the Windsock of the OS. So whatever data comes in or moves out, since it passes through the Windsock of the OS, it has to pass through mine too. So there and then we intercept the data and do the scanning for content, spam, viruses, worms. And this technology proves superior in today's times. The reason is very simple. You and I send and receive emails with and without attachments. You and I surf the net. And using this medium, the infections that creep into your system, okay, it becomes too late for an antivirus scanner to take action on that because the malware is actually executed in transit. So this is where this technology proves superior in today's times. It prevents that infection from hitting into your system, creeping into your system, or getting into your system. So prevention is better than cure. A simple life's funda which you and I apply is applied within this solution or within this technology that we've incorporated. Excuse me. We are certified by all the known global organizational standards like Virus Bulletin AV, ICSA check marks, etc. Multi-platform compatibility. Our solutions are available on Windows as well as on Linux. I have summarized it like this. Securing data and networks, the trick does not lie in what weapons you have, but how effectively you put them to use. Am I right? Just a list of what I follow and I recommend. Security best practices, inventory of all IT resources, grouping resources into levels of sensitivity and criticality. As I mentioned earlier, each organizational requirements, each organizational business demands are different. Likewise, all these. Define end user access scenarios, associate end user access scenarios with levels of sensitivity and criticality. Validate the policies within a select group using relevant event logging. Role policies. User need to be authenticated with identity management systems. Needless to say, backups, very crucial. Avoid pirated softwares and cracks. Endpoints must be healthy. What I mean by endpoints is the scanner solutions, the antivirus solutions should be updated and running properly and configured well. Recent scans should not show any infection. Personal firewalls should be up and running and configured well. Security patches, that is OS as well as applications, should be up to date. Behavior must be acceptable. No port scanning or sending spam activity should be reported or logged within an organization And which is the most crucial, the last point being, educate the users about security policies and the best practices that are required for the organizational point of view. Thank you for being patient and kind. Appreciate it. Any questions, please? Yeah, that was the point that I actually kept at the end. I intentionally didn't include it in my slide. I wanted to be more interactive. Thanks. I told you initially, we are the developers of content security and antivirus. We've got a solution called eScan, which is a content security and an antivirus for desktops, file servers, proxy servers, as well as for ESA servers as well. That's for the perimeter part. Okay. We've got another product called a mail scan, which is yes, specific to Microsoft Windows. And we've got another product called a mail scan, which is a total mail scanning solution for a mail server. In today's time, if you have a hybrid network, that is a Windows as well as a Linux, okay, there are not many spywares coming in, adwares that are being written, rootkits that are prevalent, even on a Linux box. Though they say Linux is the most robust or the most secure, gone, because our reports tells us, and we get those samples coming in, because there are not many rootkits that are written. Initially there were viruses, so-called, but not worms anymore. It's like that. Any more queries? Fine. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.